Chris Brown, Steve Tasker with you. Pleased to be joined now by the man who just signed a 2-year contract extension. It's going to keep him in Buffalo through the 2024 season. It is one Mitch Morse joining us on the line here. Mitch, congratulations. Glad it happened for you. I know you're not one to kind of shine a light on yourself very often, but I'm curious if you feel the same way that Steve and I do. We felt last year was probably your best, most consistent season individually in a Bills uniform. How do you feel about that?
I mean, I'd say that's right. I think the consistency started with the guys around me, with the coaches and everything, putting me in a position to succeed. And understanding there might have been some plug and play with the guys around me, but when everyone jumped in, whenever that was, they did a great job of communicating, made my job a lot easier. I think availability was huge, like in any season. So, you can't predict that totally, but you can take the right steps. And I think we found a formula that works for me, and hopefully just continuing that through the rest of my career.
Well, it's nice to see you on. We've got you on Zoom today. Obviously, it's nice to see your beards in mid-season form. Really looks good, by the way. I know you. You're spending the off season there in Kansas City with your family. The kid, you got the new one. Give us a rundown on how the family's doing and because I know this. Your family's got to be on board with you doing it again, signing a new deal, a couple more years in the same city. Is the family on board with it? How do they feel about your time and how it's been here in Buffalo?
Well, fellas, we're surviving, not thriving here in Kansas City. It's been a blessing. My family has always been kind of a pivotal point for me. Always kind of been my stronghold to keep me sane and level-headed. The best version of myself. So any chance I get to pour into them in the off season, I do. It's good stuff here, man. I can't complain. We're rocking and rolling.
Now, I'm curious, Mitch, because you've said it more than once. You said it through the course of the season. You mentioned it here again, when I was asking you for a comment on how well you felt you played individually, and you referenced the communication. Now, obviously, the communication up front is something you strive to be as consistent and perfect with as you can each and every week, each and every year you play. What made it so much more effective that because you've mentioned it time and again as to why the play was better up front for you individually, for the group as a whole, et cetera, especially down the stretch. What was different about the communication that made the cohesive play so much more fluid, it seemed?
I mean, I wish there was one moment that a flip switched or we made some drastic change, but it's just kind of one of those cliches that once you take little steps forward and eventually it'll click, whether it be finding our identity down the stretch, really working on those things we needed to work on in practice, and it finally taken two. It's just a resilient group. And I think you talked to any offensive lineman last year, they weren't very happy how he started. And that's what makes this place so great. It's a locker room full of resiliency. And I answered Steve's question earlier. That plays a role. The locker room and the group of guys when we're re-signing, and the family is definitely on board. I realized I didn't answer your question, Steve. The family was for sure on board with me coming back. And to answer Chris's question, the offensive line just took little steps. We didn't try to change drastically, and eventually just stuck to.
Well, let me say this: you look at Deion Dawkins, then it looks like Roger Saffold, who was just signed yesterday, yourself, and then on the other side, probably Spencer Brown coming back to play right tackle. Right guard seems to be a little bit up in the air, but those four guys, with the addition of Roger Saffold, what do you know about? I know you've probably spoken with him or at least crossed paths with him. Spencer Brown coming off his first year where he started probably 12 games
came
or something.
Came in
week 4. Spencer Brown looking to come back and build on the start he had gotten off to. Can you foresee how, it's almost impossible. I know it's a crazy question, but can you foresee how this group's going to come together? Yeah, do you have a feel for it? You have to say goodbye to Darrell Williams. You had to say goodbye to John Feliciano. Some good buddies. It's going to be a different crew.
Yeah, Steve, that's right. First and foremost is a business, but You'd be reluctant to say that you don't form really tight bonds, and you can attest to this. I mean, off the field, you get to know these people's families. They become dear friends, and it's tough. It's the tough part of this gig, and we wish them all the best. Can I foresee what it looks like? I mean, on paper, somewhat. Um, a Roger is an established veteran in the league. Has been playing at a high level for a very long time. Is a physically imposing player. I mean, the dude is just built like a tank. You know what I mean? Just plays hard. Really impressed with how he was run blocking and pass blocking. I mean, he just likes to physically impose his will. So whenever you get a player like that, you can tell he's a tone setter, and we always appreciate those in the offensive line.
You have a new offensive line coach in the room, and Aaron Kromer certainly comes in with a boatload and a laundry list of credentials, good ones. Roger obviously has some experience with him, having played under him out in L.A. with the Rams for a couple of seasons. You know that, at least from what Coach McDermott has said, a lot of the protections and things like that are going to stay the same to benefit the guys that are here, as well as Josh. But maybe some of the techniques might change under Coach Kromer to a certain extent. How much can Roger, being a player here, kind of help facilitate the learning curve for guys like you that might be a little bit new to Kromer's techniques? Like, hey, this is why we do it this way because of A, B, and C. Is there some of that goes on player to player?
Absolutely. I think when you have a new coach coming in, there's inherently a little learning curve. And having a guy who's played with this coach before, really taken up what he's preached and used it in their own game, it's great. And you can also see, coaches say this sometimes, that sometimes you just need a fresh perspective, or maybe I'm not getting my tone across. There's another way to say it. There's another way to skin the cat, saying the same message. And a player might see it differently. So he could probably voice what the coach wants in a different way, and what better person to do it than someone who's done it for him previously.
So when you come back, you're going to have a different offensive coordinator in Ken Dorsey. Obviously, you've rubbed up against him. You guys have had conversations and talked to the guy. How do you sense that change manifesting itself not only in Josh Allen's relationship with Ken Dorsey and all that, but it's going to be a lot of new faces on the coaching staff and in and around the offensive line, maybe some skill position players as well. J.D. McKissick was just signed by the club, running back from Washington and around the league. You're coming back into a new and different team after the way the season ended last year, the disappointment of it, but still the high level of success and the high level of play that you guys were putting out there. It's hard to just set that aside and start from scratch, but yet that's where you find yourself.
No doubt. Sometimes change brings fresh perspective. It brings a challenge, right? Because you've built rapport with people. It's not like we haven't had success, like you've said, going to, one game away 2 years ago and 2 games away last year. It's not only the nature of the beast, but sometimes it's a necessity. Some players and coaches thrive elsewhere. Some players and coaches thrive in-house. You just don't know that until some people move on and such. And we've built rapport with these people, love them, but with fresh faces, it'll make every day a challenge in the best way, because you have to build relationships. You have to understand what they're bringing to the table, and they have to understand what you're bringing to the table. And it's a challenge, but it's also a fun one.
And the last one I've got for you, Mitch, is, I think, and we didn't really get a chance to talk to you about this after the last game because there were bigger fish to fry in terms of how that thing unfolded, but it just seemed to us, by the time we got to the end of the season there, the only thing that could really stand in the way for you guys was yourselves. I mean, the level of football you guys were playing, there was, in our eyes, nobody that was going to take you down except yourselves. Is that kind of the jumping off point? Because I know what Coach is going to say the first day you guys get back here. He's going to say every year is different. And it has to be a new jumping off point. But I think it's pretty well founded that the talent on this roster is still very strong, and that maybe the starting point might not be the same, but I got to believe it's going to be a lot further ahead from the starting point last year in light of the level of football that you guys achieved, particularly on offense.
Well, a few things. One is that previous success can be a burden, not a burden, but it can, if you don't flush the previous years, even with success, it can almost damn you. You know what I mean? You have to understand that just because you were able to put something together last year or the year before, make a push in the postseason, that's not going to automatically take you to the next year. Now, the expectations are high for the fan base and this club, as they should be. But you're bringing in new faces, new perspectives. You got to make new acquaintances, and then you have to find a way to come together, a new team. You know, every year, even the run game is different. Maybe it's one year it's pin and pull, one year it's inside zone, one day, and it's not like you make that. It's not like you choose that. It's just how that works, and that's just a microcosm of what the whole team can do. So it'll be a great challenge. We have expectations, high ones to say the least, and it'll be a challenge. We have a target on our back, and we look forward to the ebbs and flows of the season and the preseason.
Now, I don't want to put you on the spot. You've been here for 4 years. All of them have been with Josh Allen under center. You've got a relationship, and I understand how that works. You two, have a relationship like no other on the team. And Josh has gotten better every single year in some way, shape, or form. And early in his career, he was getting better every week. Now he reached a level, certainly at the end of this last season, where he was elite. If you talk to Josh and if you can anticipate what he's going to say, I know he works on his game. What do you think the next step for him is as a guy who, is in the huddle with him every single snap? What do you think he's looking for to make? What kind of jump is he going to make this year, and where's he looking to make a jump?
I mean, the jump I'd like him to see is maybe slide every once in a while.
Yeah, right? But, instead of jumping, slide. Instead of jumping, yeah.
Yeah, well, but that's also to the point you're asking someone to be someone they're not. And that's who Josh is. He'd lay it out for you. That's a great question. I feel like a little bit in your seat. I would ask him the same. I'd have no idea. If I was him, it'd be minute things. And maybe it would be, just continuing being it would be more of continuation rather than progression on certain things. Continuing to be a great friend in the locker room, because that correlates to people wanting to, risk it all for you on game day. Being a great leader by example, which he continues to do. Just doing the right thing on and off the field, he continues to do. And if you continue to do that, you set the standard for everyone else in the locker room, because this ship sails the way he goes. So I think he's taken a great step in that, even the few years I've been here. You can tell this is his team, and so whatever step he takes will be in the right direction. And you and I will discuss that that next step this time next year, because I have no idea, but it'll be a great challenge for him and for all of us.
All right, Mitch, thanks. Pleasure talking to you. Enjoy being a dad here in the off season. We're glad the extension worked out for you.
Gentlemen, it's a privilege. Thank you so much.